Do you want to be confident in JavaScript? Then this video playlist is for you. Look no further for your JavaScript lectures as CodeBlock presents you with a dedicated playlist that will take you from 0 to 1. JavaScript is one of the most used and powerful programming languages in the world, and to understand it, you need step-by-step guidance. And here we are going to start learning this widely used programming language. Hello and welcome to CodeBlock. We are going to start learning JavaScript, but before we do that, let's take a look at the playlist outline to be sure of what are the expectations that you can draw from this playlist and how the CodeBlocks playlist on JavaScript is different than other playlists out there on YouTube. This playlist outline will give you a concise overview of what can we expect from this playlist, what will we learn by the end of this playlist, and most important of all, is this playlist on JavaScript even worth investing your time? Learning a programming language becomes less confusing and less frustrating when we move towards learning the concepts in a sequence and from the beginning by understanding basic to advanced concepts one by one. This playlist on JavaScript is based on the same principle. We will start from the complete basics and then move to more advanced concepts one by one. All the lessons are crafted in a sequence and are a follow-up of previous lectures. This is the reason why in the beginning I said look no further for your JavaScript lessons. Now, I will never say or suggest that I am the only one who can teach you JavaScript and you should not watch others. I am sure that there are many great lectures on JavaScript available on YouTube and you can watch them anytime. But the problem is, most of them are highly unorganized and left out in the middle. Little things like zoom level of the code editor is not so accurate, the sound is not so clear, or sometimes they miss the complete basics and sometimes don't go in depth on the confusing concepts that need proper attention. Just for the sake of getting started quickly, we miss to understand the complete fundamentals in the beginning. And this is one of the mistakes among many mistakes beginners make while starting to learn to code. They don't take time to understand the complete basics and directly jump on the advanced concepts only to realize they are extremely complicated to understand and need beginner level understanding first. Now here comes this playlist on JavaScript. What makes this playlist different from other available YouTube JavaScript tutorials is that the videos in this playlist are produced with the most care and proper research. I had a very difficult time when I was starting to learn JavaScript, and hence I know how to teach JavaScript so that the learning output can be maximized. I have crafted this course with proper research, keeping the essentials in mind. Starting from bare basics, that too in advance, we talk about advanced topics only when the previous concepts are discussed in detail. Let's have a look at the playlist outline in detail and answer the remaining two questions. In this playlist about JavaScript, you will learn the complete basics of the programming language, starting from the introduction to the language to complete fundamentals like variables, data types, operators, strings, if-else, and some more basic concepts to medium-level topics like functions, array, objects, iteration, loops, asynchronous JavaScript, document object modeling, in short DOM, and modern JavaScript that includes ES6 and latest features. We are going to learn about all of this in great detail, but in no hurry at all. By finishing CodeBlock's JavaScript 0 to 1 series, you will be getting enough exposure to the JavaScript language that after this, you will be confident enough to take on all the libraries and frameworks that require basic to intermediate JavaScript knowledge such as Angular, React.js, Vue.js, Node.js, and you can go for React Native app development as well. Moreover, you can also proceed towards becoming good in web development, which we will be learning as well shortly. But wait, this is just the beginning. My goal is to make you a professional in JavaScript. When we will be confident enough with the complete basics of JavaScript, we will have another playlist in which we will talk about all the advanced topics of JavaScript, like how the language works, what are object-oriented programming, high-order functions, if we, closure, call apply bind, and much more that will take your JavaScript knowledge to a whole new level and will separate you from beginner JavaScript developers. Overall, the Code Blocks playlist of JavaScript series will be your one destination for JavaScript lessons, where we will leap towards mastering the complete JavaScript from beginner to advanced. Now, one short note before we take off. I put a lot of effort in crafting these tutorials for you, that too for free. Preparing these single presentations takes an entire day for me, and I'm not even talking about editing and fine-tuning them. No, I'm not going to bore you with please subscribe my channel, please like the video, share and all. All I want to say is that you need to practice what I'm going to teach you, and please code along and solve the challenges and quiz that will come in between. Don't just lie in the bed and just watch me doing all. You need to take action to learn something valuable. Now, if you can't solve the challenges, it's completely fine since you are a beginner. But do give it a try. Please, at least respect my hard work. Also, I know most of you will try to finish the lessons all at once. Dear friends, don't attempt to do this. Don't go for finishing entire lessons all at once. You most likely won't achieve any big output. Our mind is not a machine. It needs a significant break. Okay, if so, then you must have one question. How to study then? Well, I recommend studying for 30 minutes and then taking a break of 15 minutes in which drink water, listen to your favorite music, cook something, etc. and come back and repeat this process 6 times. Why 6 times? Because this way you will study for 180 minutes, which is 3 hours, and will get an adequate break of 90 minutes. This is perfect. The output that you will achieve by doing this can't be expressed in this video. You will feel it for yourself when you will do it. Now, I also recommend note making, and for that I recommend you to prepare a sheet of A4 papers and write the top essentials. Don't write everything in that, because you can watch these videos anytime you like to refresh your concept, so make notes only for very important concepts. Another thing I would like to mention is that don't take stress at all if you don't understand any concepts. It's completely normal to get confused in the beginning. As we will progress, you will start to understand the concepts, and that's my promise. If you are excited to join me in this journey, go ahead and watch a few lectures on the playlist, and if you feel like you learned something valuable and I impressed you with my work, please do consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon. Also, do not forget to like the video and comment your views on it. In this way, you will be letting the algorithm know about the value that you got from these lessons and will recommend them further. It won't cost you any money, but will be a huge help for me. Better reach and engagement will keep me motivated to produce such high quality content for absolutely free. And with that being said, thanks for watching and have a happy code day. Let's start learning. So let's now write our very first line of JavaScript code. And for now, we will do that in browser developer tools just to get started as quickly as possible. We will then switch to the code editor to write JavaScript code efficiently, and I will show you the setup of code editor in a moment. For now, we will use browser developer tool. So I'm here on Chrome browser. So make sure to open up Google Chrome. Now, if you want to use another web browser such as Mozilla Firefox, feel free to do that, as most of the instructions are going to be same for those browsers as well. Your learning will not be compromised at all. Now, there are 3 ways in which we can open up the Chrome developer tools. First, we can open it by hitting the shortcut command. Now that shortcut command is Command Option J. This shortcut is for Mac. So on Windows, this is going to be Control Alt J. And so this will then open up this console that we see here. So all of these tabs are nothing but basically the developer tools. But we are just interested in this console. Okay, now another way of opening the developer tools is by, first of all, let me close this, is by right clicking and then clicking inspect, which will then bring us to this elements tab, and from here just navigate to this console. And another way of opening it is by, and I am showing you all of this because different people like to do it in different ways, so it is always better to know multiple ways. So the third one is by going into this top menu bar, click view, go to developer, and then from here click JavaScript console. You can notice the first shortcut that I told you. So it's probably command, this is alt command J, or I don't know what is this shortcut in Mac. This is option. Okay, so option command J. If you click this, here you can see we are on console. Now this JavaScript developer console allows us to write and test JavaScript code. So it's very useful during development, for example to fix errors. Now we don't write real applications of course using this console. For that we are going to use a code editor which setup I will show you in a moment. But now just to get started, let's use the console because it's a good way and a easy way to just write some JavaScript here. So let's write here something. So the first thing that we are going to write is going to be alert. So alert is just a simple so-called JavaScript function that alerts something on the browser. Now you don't have to understand all of these things right now. I'm gonna teach you everything in great details. We are just testing something, so it is better to follow what I am telling you. Now after writing alert, you can open up a parenthesis. Now inside this, well not inside this, but after this you can write a text message which is called a string. So you can write it under this double quote. Now over here you can write hello world. So hello world. Now this is nothing but a very standard way of learning programming in any programming language. We start by writing a hello world program. So if you have little experience in programming, you can understand what I am saying. Nevertheless, if you are a beginner, you can still do it. Now close this with the same parenthesis. If you hit enter or return on your keyboard, now you can see that Chrome new tab says hello world. So this is nothing but just a way to print some pop-up over here, or you can say just open some pop-up over here. Now this is also called a dialog box. This entire box in JavaScript is sometimes also referred as dialog box, but again we are just starting out, right? So we are not going to put that much mind straight away. Just click OK to get out of here. Now we can also write something else here. So let's do something else. Let's write a variable. So here I'm going to write let JavaScript equals to, or let's just write JS equals to another string awesome. Okay, hit enter. Now we are going to test. Now you don't have to understand whatever I'm writing now. We are just testing. We are going to talk about all of this in great details. So here I can say if, let me increase the window size so that it will be clearly visible. Okay, this much, and let's bring some space over here as well. Now here I can test if JS equals to awesome, we will simply say then alert JS is awesome. Now let me explain you what I did. So first of all, we have declared a variable. Again, I'm going to teach you everything in detail, but right now I'm just going to give you little explanation of what we did here. So we are simply saying that if inside this parenthesis, whatever we have written inside this parenthesis is true, which is actually true, we have declared this variable over here and we have said let JS equals to awesome. So we are simply saying, hey JavaScript, check if JavaScript is exactly equals to this string awesome, and this statement will be evaluated to true, and if it is true, then alert JavaScript is awesome. Now if you hit return, you can see our dialog box is actually returning us JavaScript is awesome. Okay, and then just click OK to get out of it. Now over here we can say let JS equals to no awesome. Okay, and now let's copy this command here, and first we need to hit enter. And now here if we paste this, if you now hit enter, you see our dialog box is nowhere to be seen. Why? Because now this evaluation is false. So if this is true, then only alert this, otherwise don't alert something. Now this might be going over your head, but don't worry, we are just getting started, so you don't have to think much about this. Now another way in which you can write JavaScript code inside this developer console is that by going to source tab, from here click this arrow, and then from here click snippets, and from here click new snippets, and now name your file. So I'm just going to write hello.js. Now this .js is extension. This tells the browser that this file is a JavaScript file. Hit enter, and now here you can write your JavaScript code. So for example, you can write alert hello world. Now how to execute this? Here in the corner you can see we have a shortcut which is command plus enter. So either you can hit command plus enter or you can click here. So if you click, you see we get hello world, and then inside the console we got some output which obviously we do not have to understand. Now another code that I want to show you here is to log something out in the console. So this is nothing but this is also a function. So for example, if you want to print something inside the console, what about your name or your age or anything, or simply you can go with hello world as well. All you have to do is that you have to say console dot log hello world. So this console.log is a function that prints whatever is inside this parenthesis down here in the console. Now let's run it again. Now you can see we get hello world. Similarly, you can copy this. Let's close this part over here, come to console, and here you can write, or let me show you how can you clear this console. You can click this button or you can press Command K to clear this console. Now let's paste that command here, which is console.log hello world. If you hit enter, now you can see we get hello world. Similarly, you can do mathematical calculations as well. For example, 12 plus 12, this is 24. 12 into 12, 144. So now you can see how fast is it to do some testing over here in the browser developer tools, right? So this is the reason why we use browser developer tools. Obviously we do not write real programs here. Now let's see how do we actually write real programs. Now from here I'm going to open a new tab and I will search VS Code. VS Code is the code editor that we are going to use. Now click the first link, and now from here click download, and now you can download for your operating system, Windows, Linux, Mac. I'm on Mac, so I'm not going to download for Mac since I already have VS Code installed. Now this is just a very straightforward setup process, so it is not going to be very difficult for you to download VS Code and and install it in your system for yourself. Okay, now I already have installed VS Code in my system. Now let me show you how we can actually write JavaScript code. So I will navigate to my desktop, and over here I am going to create a new folder, and I will simply name it 0 2 1. Hit enter, and now here is my VS Code. So all I am going to do is that I am going to take this folder, drag it and drop it inside VS Code and let it launch. Okay, so now we are up. Now over here you can see we have 4 icons. Now I will not bore you with all of this. If you click this icon, it will tell you to create a new file. It will suggest you that by clicking this icon you can create a new file. Similarly, you can create a new folder. We are just going to create a new file and we will name it script, script, script.js. Now this .js is again the extension. So this actually tells this code editor as well as the web browser that this file is a JavaScript file and it contains JavaScript code. So please treat this file as a JavaScript file. Hit enter. Now here you can write all your code. Now what we did, we wrote alert, right? So we can write alert, and then here we are just going to write hello world. Now let's save this. You can save this by pressing Command S or by going to file and then from here clicking save. If you save this, here you can see the white icon is gone, which means your file is saved. Now if you make any edit over here, you can see we are seeing this white circle over here. Okay, which means the file has been edited. It needs to be saved before we get to see any update, right? So again, we can again come over here to file, save, or simply we can just press this command, which is Command and S, or in Windows it would be Control S to save this file. So I can press Command S and now the file is saved. Now how do we execute it? So for this we are going to use index.html file. So over here we are going to create one HTML document. So I am going to call it index.html. Again, this .html tells the code editor as well as the web browser that this particular file is an HTML file. So please render it as an HTML file and treat it as an HTML file. Hit enter, and now here we can generate the default boilerplate of HTML. Now if you don't know HTML, then it's completely fine. I'm not going to teach you HTML right now. We will be taking a look at the HTML little bit later. Obviously just in a moment, not in a moment, but just in a month or two, I will be bringing a whole front-end development course over here on the same channel. Okay, now over here I'm going to print the default boilerplate. Now to print the default boilerplate of HTML, just press Shift and 1 on your keyboard, which will again bring this exclamation. Now if you read, it says emmet abbreviation. So emmet is just a shortcut that is already built in VS Code, and it helps us a lot in our coding. It saves our time. So again, if you hit enter or if you click over here, it will generate a default markup or default boilerplate of HTML. Now inside this you can write something. You can write H1. We can say this is JavaScript 021. Okay, something like this. Now just save this again by pressing Command S. Here you can see the file is not saved, so Command S. Now how do we open this? We open this by opening the folder and then by double clicking over here. So double click, and I think it opened on my wrong browser, so let me just get it quickly from my screen. So over here I'm going to get this. So here you can see JavaScript 021. Okay, so let me fix it very quickly. Okay, drawn over here. So now this is where our output is going to be shown, but you can see that we are clearly not seeing what alert does. alert simply prints a pop-up over here, but we are not seeing this. Why? Now the reason why we are not seeing is that, first of all, let me close this one, this sidebar. You can close this by pressing this shortcut Command B. Okay, now we have to go to this index.html and we have to tell this index.html that, hey, index.html, there's a file called script.js. You need to load whatever it is written over here, and then that will show up over here. Currently we are just rendering this is JavaScript 0 to 1, so we need to link this script.js over here. How do we do that? We are just going to say script and press enter, and then inside this script we can reference the script.js file using this source attribute. We can say source equals to reference this script.js, and now you will see the moment I will hit Command S, let me shrink it over here, we need to refresh this, right? So refresh it, and now you can see our dialog box over here. Okay, so this pop-up says hello world. Now let me quickly adjust this. So over here I'm going to adjust my window. Okay, now over here let's close this one, and we are going to do all of our work over here. Now again let's just print something to the console. Now I can say console dot log, and over here I can say hello world. Now if I save this, obviously we need a semicolon as well. If I save this, if I reload, we cannot see console. Why? Because console is not something that pops up over here. Console goes in browser developer console. To see the output that console prints, you'll have to again go to console. So right click, inspect, go to console, and now here you can see hello world. Okay, so this is how we are going to write JavaScript code. We will be writing JavaScript code over here in script.js, and then we will see the output over here. Okay, so now let's continue. Alright, so we have written a few lines of JavaScript, but what exactly is JavaScript and what can we do with it? Well, that's exactly what we are going to find out in this video. And so in this lecture, we will set the stage for the rest of the course, and so you must follow this one until the end. You can find multiple definitions of JavaScript, but if we summarize, then an accurate definition would be that it's a high-level, object-oriented, multi-paradigm programming language. And now with that being said, can we just move on? Well, probably not, because what does any of that actually mean? So let's deconstruct this just a little bit to at least make some sense out of this. And starting with the programming language itself, a programming language is basically just a tool that allows us to write code that will instruct a computer to do something. And of course, that's our main goal of using JavaScript, right? Then we go on and define it further by saying that JavaScript is a high-level language, which means that we don't have to think about a lot of complex steps such as managing the computer's memory while it runs our programs. So in JavaScript, there are a lot of so-called abstractions over all these small details that we don't want to worry about, and this makes the language a lot easier to write and learn. Next, I say that JavaScript is object-oriented, and all that means is that the language is mostly based on the concepts of objects for storing most kinds of data. And of course, we will learn all about object-oriented programming as well shortly. Finally, JavaScript is also a multi-paradigm language, meaning that it's so flexible and versatile that we can use all kinds of different programming styles such as imperative and declarative programming. And these different styles are just different ways of writing and structuring our code basically. Again, you will learn all about this throughout the course. This is just a first very high level overview, but I hope it's been making sense so far. Anyway, now that we know what JavaScript actually is, or at least kind of, what is the role that it plays in web development? Or in other words, what do we actually use it for? And to answer that question, let's actually look at three core technologies of the web: HTML, CSS, and of course JavaScript. So these three technologies all work together to create beautiful, interactive, and dynamic websites or web applications. Now, the HTML is responsible for the content of the page. So the text, the images, the buttons, and all the contents that you see on the web page is always written in HTML. Then the CSS is responsible for the presentation of that content. So basically for styling and for laying out the elements on a web page. And then finally JavaScript is the real programming language of the internet, and it allows developers to add dynamic and interactive effects to any web page. We also use it to manipulate the content or the CSS, load data from remote servers, and really build entire applications in the browser, which we then call web applications. Now we can also use the analogy of nouns, adjectives, and verbs to make this separation of roles a bit easier to understand. So in this analogy, HTML represents the nouns, for example, saying that the P element is a paragraph, and so paragraph is the noun here. The CSS then is the adjective because it describes the noun, like this piece of CSS saying the paragraph text is blue, and so here blue is the adjective describing the noun. And finally JavaScript is of course the verb, like saying hide the paragraph, and so here we are doing something and so we have a verb. Okay, I hope this analogy clearly explains the difference between the three core technologies that are the core part of web development. Now to finish this lecture, I want to briefly talk about JavaScript releases or versions as you might call them. We will come back to this topic by the end of the section because it's super important to understand, and I have also promised you that I will make you confident in JavaScript. Still, it's a good idea to get a first overview of JavaScript releases at this point. Anyway, to make a long story short, there has been a huge update to the language in 2015, which is officially called ES 2015, but most people just call it ES6 simply because it was released after ES5, and by the way, ES stands for ECMAScript. Now after ES 2015, there is now a yearly new release with a couple of new JavaScript features. All of these new releases or versions starting from ES 2015 are what we call modern JavaScript. But why am I telling you all this? Well, it's simply because in this course, I am going to teach you modern JavaScript right from the beginning. And don't worry, it is not going to be too complex to learn, that's my promise. Also, I wanted to make this very clear right from the start. However, I am also convinced that you need to understand what came before 2015, so ES5. And so I will also show you what's important about ES5. Now lastly, I just want to ask you for your support. Please like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Your one click will be a huge support to the channel and will keep me motivated to produce such high quality content for absolutely free. Now I can guess I might be boring you with these presentations, but trust me, these are essentials for you to understand to make a good start. As you might have heard, well begun is half done. Now I don't want to bore you with these slides anymore, so let's finally start writing JavaScript code. Welcome back. Let's now start to learn the JavaScript language, starting with values and variables and their data types. Now, first we are going to get a detailed look at what variables are and what are values, and then we will understand what are data types. Okay, so to explain to you the concept of variables, I am going to take the example of a person. such as a person's name, a person's age, a person's job, and also their birth year. Okay? So now let's talk about what are values. And if you feel like taking notes, then you should definitely, but be to the point and don't write everything in your notebook. Just write down the essentials. So, what is a value? So, a value is a piece of data that contains raw information. In another word, you can summarize a value by considering it the most fundamental unit that we have in programming. For example, the text John here is a value. And again, if you want to see this in the console, you can do this. So you can say console dot log, and you can wrap this value inside a parenthesis. So if you save this, come over here, and if you reload the browser, you can see we get the output John down here in the console. And now in the right side of our value, you can see it says script.js:1. So what it means is that the value or the output that we are getting in the console is the result of the execution of the line which is at this point. So script.js line 1. So come over here and see we have script.js, and on the line 1 we have written console.log, and hence this indicates that this output is from the execution of the code of the line 1. Now we can also have different values. So here we can say console.log, and then inside this we can write a number. If I save this, if I reload my browser, you can see we get 30, and this time script.js:2. Now the extremely important thing that we can do with values is we can store them in a variable so that we can use them over and over again. For example, we can say let and then the name of the variable. So I can say first name, and then by using an equal sign we can assign it a value. So here I can say John. So what we did here is called declaring a variable. We declared a variable whose name is first name, and then we assigned it a value which is John. So what it will do is this will create a real variable in your computer's memory, and we will store this value inside of that variable. So you can imagine a variable like being a box. So in the real world, a box can hold some object. For example, it can hold a book, a t-shirt, a toy, simply some kind of object. And so then we can write a label on that box to describe what's in it, and then we can find the object later when we need it by using the label. And variables work in an exact way. So here we have a box called first name, and into that box we put the value of John. And now if you want to use this value, all you have to do is to use this label. In other words, this variable name. So you can do console.log, and then you can pass this variable name into this function, and now you can use the value that is assigned to this variable. If you save the script.js file, if you refresh our browser, you can see from line 5 we get the output John. Now we can use these variables many times. So if I repeat this line 3 or 4 times, and by the way I have used the shortcut Shift Option down arrow in Mac and Shift Alt down arrow in Windows. Now if I save this, reload my browser, you can see we are getting the output of John multiple times. So now that we know what a variable is, let's quickly talk about the conventions and rules for naming variables, because we should not just give random names to variables. So the first way I named this variable is called a camel case. Camel case means whenever we have multiple words in a variable name, we start the variable name with lowercase, and then every following word starts with an uppercase. So first name, so first started with the lowercase, and then after the first ended, we wrote name and we capitalized the first word of name. So this is kind of a standard in the JavaScript world. But of course, there are other ways of naming variables. For example, we can write a variable like this. We can say let first underscore name, and then we can assign it a value. So again I can call it John. So this is popular in other languages like Python and Ruby, and you can use whatever way you like the most. Just keep in mind that it's kind of a standard in JavaScript to write the variable names like this. So whenever you see other people's code, usually you will see variables declared using camel case notation. So that's kind of convention on how to name variables in JavaScript. Now there are also some hard rules in JavaScript about how we can name variables. So for example, you cannot write something like this. So let me get some space. You cannot say let 4 rupee equals to 4 rupee. Simply we are assigning it a value of 4. You cannot start a variable name with the integer or number itself. So you can read the error. It says variable declaration not allowed at this location. Why? Because an identifier or keyword cannot immediately followed a numerical literal. Okay, so this is numerical literal, so this is not allowed in JavaScript. Also, you cannot do something like this. So you can say let me and my friend equals to John and week. This is not allowed. Another error might occur when you try to use a variable name with a reserved JavaScript keyword. For example, you can say let new equals to shoes. This is not allowed. Why? Because new is a reserved keyword and we are going to talk about new little bit later. Similarly, you can also not use something like this. You can say function equals to my function. This cannot be done because function is a reserved word in JavaScript. Also, another word that is kind of reserved but is allowed to use is name. So we can say let name equals to John, but I prefer to use it this way. Don't simply declare a variable called name. Always be specific. For example, first name. You can also say last name. Okay, so don't just use name, although it is allowed, but it is not recommended. Also, do not start your variable name with a capital word. So something like this, let person equals to code. This is not allowed. Okay, I mean this is not illegal, but this is a convention in JavaScript which we will talk about later. By the way, this is related to object-oriented programming and constructor, so we will see this later. On the same note, variables that are all in uppercase are reserved for constants that we know will never change. For example, pi. So we can declare them using this way. So we can say let pi equals to the value of pi, which is never going to change. So we can say 3.1415962, something like this. But don't use this convention for declaring all the common variables like first name or last name. So don't do this. Let first name equals to anything. Let last name equals to anything. Don't do this. Okay, now to finally finish this lecture, let's talk about one final convention, which is to make sure that our variable names are descriptive, and that's very important to write cleaner code. So when you name your variable, it should be easy to understand what exactly the variable is holding just by reading the name of the variable. So we can write a descriptive variable name like this. So we can say let my first job equals to, and I need to get rid of all of these bad code over here, otherwise we will run into error. Okay, so let's delete all of this and let's get rid of this as well. Okay, now we can say let my first job equals to software engineer. And then if we switched our job, we can say let my second job equals to, I can say, teacher. Okay, so you can see that these variable names are descriptive. We are actually saying that, hey, my first job was software engineer, my second job is teacher, rather than if we would have said something like this: let job 1 equals to software engineer, let job 2 equals to teacher. If you compare both of them, what do you think is looking more descriptive? Obviously, this one, because job 1 and job 2 does not make any sense. We kind of do not relate that much. But here it is completely descriptive. It says my first job, my second job. Okay? So this is how we make variable name descriptive. Next up, we are going to talk about data types. We talked about values and variables. Now, in every programming language, values can have different types depending on the type of data that we want them to hold. And we already saw strings and numbers, but there are actually more data types. So let's now take a look at all the types that we have in JavaScript. And first of all, in JavaScript, every value is either an object, which looks something like this, or a primitive value. So a value is only a primitive when it's not an object, and we will learn all about objects later. But for now, let's really focus on primitive data types. So there are 7 primitive data types: number, string, boolean, undefined, null, symbol, and big int. So let's look at them one by one. First, we have the number data type, and numbers are always so-called floating point numbers, which means that they always have decimals even if we don't see them or don't define them. For example, the value 30 that we have here is exactly like having 30.0, but they are both simply the number data type. In many other programming languages, you will find different data types for integers and for decimals. Java is one good example, but not in JavaScript. In JavaScript, all numbers are simply of the type number. Okay? And don't confuse yourself by Java and JavaScript. Both are different programming language. Next up, we have strings, which are simply a sequence of characters, and so they are just used for text, as we already learned. And always put them in quotes, no matter if double quotes or single quotes. Otherwise, JavaScript will actually confuse them with variable names. The Boolean data type is essentially a logical type that can only take one of the logical values, true or false. In other words, a Boolean is always either true or false. We use Boolean values to take decisions with code, as we will see later. And these are the 3 most important data types that we will deal with the most. But there are still 4 more which might be a bit more confusing. So first, undefined is the value taken by a variable that is not yet defined. And the variable that's not yet defined is simply just a variable that we declared but without assigning a value. For example, like this game player variable here. So basically we can say that undefined means empty value. Then there is also null, which is actually pretty similar because it also means empty value, but it's used in different circumstances. But for now, don't worry about the details. I just want you to know that null also exists. Okay, anyway, next we have symbol, which was introduced in ES 2015. And this data type is not really useful for us. It simply defines a value that is unique and cannot be changed. Finally, starting in ES 2020, there is also big int, also called as big integer, which is for integers that are too large to be represented by the number type. So basically, it's another type for numbers, and we will talk about this one a little bit later. So these are the 7 primitive data types in JavaScript. But there is another fundamental thing to know about types, which is the fact that JavaScript has a feature called dynamic typing. This means that when you create a new variable, you do not have to manually define the data type of the value that it contains. In many other programming language, you actually have to do that, but not in JavaScript. Instead, JavaScript automatically determines the data type of a value when it's stored into a variable. And this distinction between value and variable is pretty important because in JavaScript, it's the value that has a type, not the variable. So variables simply store values that have a type. Many people don't know about this detail or just don't care, but this is how it actually works. Now, another important application of dynamic typing is that later in our code, we assign a new value with a different data type to the same variable without a problem. For example, a variable named x can initially be a number and later a string. That's not a problem at all. And this can of course be very useful, but it can also be the source of some difficulty to find bugs, which means errors in our code. Okay, so let's now see all of this in code to get a clear understanding. Before we talk about data type, let's quickly talk about code commenting. So in programming, we use comments to literally comment code or to deactivate code without deleting it. So for example, here you can see we have few lines of code, okay? And if we want to log it out in the console, we can do something like this. So we can say console.log, and then here we can reference this, my first job. Let's quickly reference my second job as well so that we can get both the value out here in the console. Save this. If I reload, we get both the value, software engineer and teacher, down here in console. Now what we can do is that we can comment some parts of the code but without deleting it. So comments are used in many ways. For example, you can use comments to actually tell about a part of code block that what it is doing. For example, here you can say that we have declared two variables, right? And above here you can also say that we have declared our first name variable. So this is a very general example, but I hope what I am telling you is making sense to you. So what we can actually do is that we can come over here and write down a comment. Now how do we write a comment? By simply writing two forward slashes, and now after this you can write the comment. And one thing good about comment is that when you write a comment, JavaScript engine does not pass that line. For example, here if you declare a variable, I can say random equals to 20, and now if you console.log random, we will get a reference error. If I save this, refresh, you can see we are getting a reference error. It says random is not defined. Why? Because this is simply a comment, and comment is not executed by the script. So always remember, we use comment to actually comment down some parts of the code. But again, we can use comments in many ways as well. We can actually say that here is our important, well, let's fix the spelling, important variables. Okay, for example, if we declare a function over here, if I say function, just for an example, I can say my name. So here I can write a comment and I can say here we have defined a function. Okay, so it would make sense. So if someone who would be taking over our project, they can actually understand that okay, so here we have defined a function, and then they can further add their logic to it, and then they can write down their own comment as well. So they can say I have made certain changes here. Okay, so when you will take on your project back, you can actually realize that okay, so these are the changes that has been made. Okay, so this is how comments are useful. Now we can use multi-line comments as well. So we don't have to do something like this. We don't have to press forward slash again and again. Okay, what we can do is that we can use a multi-line comments. So multi-line comments starts from slash asterisk and ends where you want to end the comment asterisk slash. So between these, whatever code we have will be commented. So this will not be executed by the JavaScript engine. Okay, so this is multi-line comment and this is single line comment. Now there's a shortcut in VS Code. If I get rid of this, now if I press command and forward slash, it automatically converts our code into a comment or our line into a comment. So for Mac the shortcut would be command forward slash, and for Windows it would be control forward slash. Alright, so this is comments. But now let's get back to the topic of the lecture, which is data types. So in the previous video we saw numbers and strings. Now we already talked about booleans. So booleans is a value that can be either true or false. Okay, so over here let me just get rid of these lines. Okay, and I'm starting fresh. Now if I write true here, then this already is a boolean. Okay, if I save this and if I reload my browser, you can see, well, you cannot literally see, but in order to see it in the console we need to log it. Okay, so I can say console.log, and now if I reload the browser, you can see true over here. Okay, so this is a boolean. Now before we further talk about data types, let me tell you about one very important operator which is called type of operator. So type of is an operator just like the plus or the minus operator. Now at this point we have not talked about operators, but don't worry, we are shortly going to cover that. As for now, just know that we can use type of operator to show the type of a value. So let me show you how it works. Now I said that this is boolean. You can see this is true. Now you can ask me that how can I say that this is a boolean? This could be string as well. But no, this is a boolean, and to prove it we can use type of operator. So here I can say type of space this one. So if I save this, now if I refresh, you can see it says boolean. Similarly you can check for numbers as well. So you can say 20, and let's do for string as well. So I can say code block. Okay, and let me do a floating point number as well. You will see that they are also called as a number, as we discussed earlier already. So if I save this, if I reload, you can see script.js line 25 is a boolean, line 26 is a number, line 27 is a string, and line 28 is a number. Okay, so by using type of operator we can actually figure out what exactly is the type of the value. Now moving on, let's see dynamic typing in action. So remember, dynamic typing simply means that we can easily change the type of a value that is held by a variable. Now this might sound little overhyped, but this is as simple as this. So we already have a variable. So over here if you scroll it, here you can see we already have a variable which is called as first name. Okay, now let's again reassign a value to it, and I'm just going to get rid of all of these console.log for now. Okay, now to reassign the value we can again say first, and let's quickly get rid of this variable as well. Okay, just keep it simple. I can say first name equals to, now I can say Jack Sparrow. Well, it's Captain Jack Sparrow, so Captain Jack Sparrow. Okay, now you will see that the first name will change to Captain Jack Sparrow. Now let me prove it. Console.log first name. If I save this, right now here you can see it is John. Okay, now if I reload the browser, now you can see it is Captain Jack Sparrow. From line 7, script.js line 7 is now Captain Jack Sparrow. First we initially assigned it a value of John, and then we changed the value we changed the value dynamically. Now one thing that I want to clearly mention here is that we don't use this let keyword again. We just reference the variable name and then reassign it a new value. If you write let here again, it means that we are again creating or again declaring a new variable, which is illegal right now because both of the variable name has same name. If you say 2, it's fine, but since we already have first name variable, we cannot create a variable with the same name twice. So this let does not make any sense here. Why? Because we are just changing the value of a variable dynamically. Okay. Now we can again change the value from a string. Right now this is a string, so we can change the value from string to a number as well. For example, first name does not make sense, but we can actually write a number here, or let's do it in a separate variable. I can say let age equals to 29. Okay, 29 console.log age. If I reload, you can see 29, right? Let me quickly comment down all of these as well. Okay, now if I reload, you can see we see 29, and this is a string, by the way. So if I use type of operator again, you will see this is a string, right? But now if we change the age to number 30, now if I save, reload, now it turned number. So this is how dynamic typing works in JavaScript. We can again and again reassign different values to a same variable as long as we have declared all of the variables legally. What do I mean by legally is that we have not declared the same named variable twice. So first name is declared only once, and anywhere you can change the variable's value to a different value. And now let's see an example of undefined. So I told you number, strings and booleans are the most used data types, but there are more: undefined and null. And we have symbol and begint as well, but in this video we are just going to talk about the three important ones that we use quite often. So now let's see undefined and null. So remember that undefined is the value taken by a variable that is not yet defined. So basically undefined means an empty value. So it's perfectly legal in JavaScript to do this. We can say let age, and that's it. Well, not that's it, because we already have age variable defined. So let's change the variable name to something else. So I can say my name, and this is completely legal in JavaScript. Okay, so we have defined a variable but without a value. And then if we take a look in the console that what this variable holds as a value, we can say console.log and reference my name here. Save this. When I will refresh the browser, you will see undefined there. So if I reload, you can see it says undefined. So what it means is that when we declare an empty variable, the value of the variable will be undefined and the type of the variable will also be undefined. So let me quickly prove it. So if I say type of my name, reload the browser, you can see it says undefined. Now this maybe sounds a bit confusing, but it's really not. So simply put, undefined is both the value and the type of the value. Okay, so if you again do something like this, let's remove this one, save this, you can actually see the difference. So first is the undefined. It says the type of the variable which is undefined. Why? Because simply we have not defined any value to it. We have created a variable but there is no value. That's why it is undefined, and that's why the type of the variable is undefined. And undefined is different than other types in this way, but this detail is not really important. What matters is that when you declare an empty variable like this, it will automatically hold the value of undefined, and that's why we get undefined here. Then just like before, we can again reassign a value to this variable. So I can say my name equals to John, and now if I save, you will see that the type of operator will say my name is holding a value string, and console.log will actually console the output that my name variable is storing. So if I reload the browser, string John. I hope it is pretty clear to you. Again, if you want to change the value, you can say my name equals to whatever. Let's just go with true. Again, it does not make sense to hold a boolean value in a my name variable because my name is a very descriptive variable. If a variable name is my name, we can expect that we are storing our name in that variable, but here I am storing a boolean just to show you. Okay, there is no problem at all. We can do some experiments right away. So if I now reload the browser, you can see it says boolean and the actual value is true. Okay, and now finally, just to quickly finish, I want to show you an error that exists in the type of operator. So all I am going to do here is to quickly say console.log type of null. So remember that null is just another data type and it's similar to undefined, and it's also similar in the fact that both the value and the type of the value are null. Okay, now about this bug, JavaScript says that a type of null is an object, and this doesn't make any sense at all, and so this is regarded as a bug or an error in JavaScript. However, this bug is never corrected for legacy regions, but now it's of course not an object. This should return null, just as type of undefined returns undefined. So just keep that in mind when working with type of. Now we will also come back to this later in the course to make sure that you don't create any accidental bugs because of this weird behavior. Okay, and now that's all I had to tell you about data types in JavaScript. So now let's actually talk about how we can declare variables in JavaScript three ways. Now we are going to understand the three ways of declaring a variable. So far, we have just used the let keyword to declare variables, but there are two more, const and var. Now, let and const were introduced in ES6, so they are modern JavaScript, while the var keyword is the old way of declaring variables. So remember, I had promised you that I will teach you modern JavaScript right from the beginning, but without skipping the old JavaScript concepts which are essential for us to know. So let's learn how const, let and var are different and which one to use in which situations. Now before I proceed, I am requesting you to please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It won't cost you any money, but will be a huge help for me. So yes, please consider subscribing, and also you can comment your feedback about the video and if you need separate explanation on any concept. Okay, so now let's proceed to understand what are the differences. So over here you can see we have declared our variable using let keyword. So what we can do is that let keyword is used to declare a variable that has a potentiality, or we can say potential, to be changed down in the future. So we can say we can use, let me write down a comment, we can say we use let keyword to declare variables that can be changed in the future. So I can say let me show you one practical example that we already did. So first over here, where are you? I think here you can see we have first declared a variable my name to John, and then we changed my name to true, which obviously does not make any sense and we already have talked about why. But anyway, you can see that we first declared the variable using let keyword, we assigned it a value, and then we changed it. So we use let keyword to declare variables whose value can be changed in future. Let's take one more example. We can say let age equals to 30. Okay, now age keeps changing every year, right? Well, it says age is already defined. Okay, so over here let's comment out this one. Okay, so let's comment this out, let's comment this out. Okay, So let age equals to 30. Now next year I will be 31, and after 10 years I will be 40. So this age can be changed. So now I can say age equals to 40. Okay, so this is completely doable. So now I can say console.log age, save this, reload. Okay, it says reference error, cannot access age before initialization. Where are you? Age equals to 30, console.log. Let's check script.js line 11. So it is always good to check from where the error is originating. So you can see script.js line 11. So line 11 has some problem. So line 11, okay, so this code must have been commented. Okay, so let's comment this out, and now if I refresh, you see we get 40. And let me take a time to, let's comment this out as well. Okay, let's comment this everything out, save this, refresh, and now we get 40. Okay, so script.js line 41, 40. So this is let keyword. Now on the other hand, we use the const keyword to declare variables that are not supposed to change at any point in the future. So the value in a const variable cannot be changed. Always remember, const simply means constant, and constant does not change. Remember mathematics class, basic mathematics, I hope you remember. So const simply means constant. For example, I can say birth year. So birth year does not change, right? If you are born in 1998 or 2010, it is not going to change, right? So how can we declare a variable using this way? We can say const. Again, the way we said let, now we can say, hey JavaScript, const birth year equals to, let's go with 2000. Okay, 2000. And remember, I am using semicolon, so this is completely optional. If you want to omit this. If you want to provide a semicolon, it's completely fine. So we are saying JavaScript const birth year equals to 2000. Now I can say console.log, but save this, refresh, we get 2000 from script.js line 45. Okay, so what actually is happening here? Now I just told you that the value of const cannot be changed. Okay, so now if we try to do something like this, we can say birth year equals to 2010. If I save this, if I refresh, you can see we get type error. It says assignment to constant variables. So again, remember, I just mentioned you that you cannot change a value of const. Let's value can be changed, but const value cannot be changed. That's why it is called constant. So let me write down the comments over here so that when I will provide you the final file, you can actually check it. Okay, so I can say const value does not change. Okay, or I can say const value can not be updated. And let's write down the let as well. You can say let's value can be changed in the future. Okay, and so that's exactly what the const keyword does. It creates a variable that we cannot reassign, or in technical term, an immutable variable. And so a variable that cannot be mutated. So mutated simply means changing the value in the future. So let is mutable, const is immutable. Okay, so always remember, mutating a value simply means we are changing the value of a variable in future, and immutable simply means that the value is declared with such a keyword which is immutable. So const is immutable, let is mutable. So I am really emphasizing on these points because these are very simple but yet very essential for you to understand. Okay, I could have gone in a very bullet approach, talking about all of these things very speedy, but no, I'm just emphasizing because I know these can be very tough for a beginner. Okay, now the fact that variables created with const are immutable also means that we cannot declare empty const variables. For example, this is not legal, so we cannot say const my name. So we cannot define an empty variable using const keyword. And if you look at the warning, it says const declarations must be initialized. Okay, so if I save this, if I reload the browser, you can read it says missing initializer in const declaration at script.js:49. So at 49, this error is originated. Okay, and so this error simply means that when using const, we need basically an initial value. So now we can say, let's go with John. Okay, so this is completely fine, but again, you cannot do something like this. Okay, this is possible using let keyword, but for const this is not allowed. Okay, so what will you get the error? You will get missing initializer in const declaration. Okay, I hope it is making sense so far. Okay, so just like here, now with these two different types of declaring variables, you will probably ask, should I use let or should I use const to declare a new variable? Well, as a best practice for writing clean code, I always recommend to use const by default and let only when you are really sure that the variables needs to change at some point in the future. For example, when you have a variable that's really never supposed to change, like this birth year over here, you should always use const keyword. And if you are sure that the age variable is never changing inside your program, you should declare it using const as well. So again, you can say something like const age equals to 35. So just be sure that age is never going to change. The reason for this is that it's a good practice to have as little variable mutations or variable changes as possible, because changing variables introduces a potential to create bugs. So basically errors in your code. So again, by default, always just use const and let when you are sure that the values of the variables need to change at some point in your code. Okay, so from now on, I will probably use the const way of declaring variables as much as possible. Now, there is also a third way in JavaScript to declare a variable, which is the var keyword. But this one should actually be completely avoided, okay? However, we should still know how it works, because remember, I told you that in order to understand JavaScript, there are some concepts which we must understand to understand the updated concept. For example, we are about to understand const and let, but you must also understand that how JavaScript used to behave before ES6. So this was my promise and I am holding up on my promise, okay? And this is also one of the reasons why you should subscribe to this channel. So thank you so much in advance. Now, what we can do is that we can, to declare a variable, now we can use var keyword. We can say var, and now I can say my name equals to, again, let's comment this out so that we can use this variable name again. Okay, so my name, and now we can provide it one more name. I can say Captain Jack a Sparrow. Okay, so this is completely fine. So var is basically the old way of defining variables prior to ES6, and at first sight this might look that it is pretty same as let. So we can write var my name equals to a value. So this is just like let, you are right, and we can change the value of the variable later as well. So now we can say my name equals to John Wick. That's completely fine. Okay, now although it looks like var and let are very similar below the surface, they are actually pretty different. And actually there are also many differences between let, const and var. So between all three of them, and you will learn about all of these differences later, but just because we are talking about these three things, these three concepts, actually I'm going to tell you about these as well. Now this is very important step, and I know that I keep saying that you will learn some topics later in the course, but the truth is that learning is really not linear. So right now it would really not be useful for you to know that let is block scoped and var is function scoped, right? Because you don't even know what a block or what a function really is. And so we will learn about all of these differences a little bit later. But just to summarize this video, I want to tell you that const are immutable, let can be mutated, and I can say where can also be mutated, but they are function scoped. Okay, so this is difference between const, let and where, but we are going to talk about most of the advanced topics like scoping of how a scope and a scope chain works, what is the actual difference between where and let, little bit later in our playlist. Okay, so I hope I made pretty much clear about what to use and what is actual difference between where, const and let. Now we are going to talk about all of these practical steps little bit later down the line, but for now these are the only things that you need to know, and I will request you to keep practicing. Next up, operators. Hey everyone, so now we are going to talk about operators in JavaScript. But before we write the code and try to understand what are operators, I am going to explain to you what is the use of operators. So in a very layman term, we can say that operators are used to perform some operations. Now what are those operations? Well, those operations can be mathematical operations, assigning a value, comparing a value and others. So now let's understand operators in wild by writing few lines of code. Now before we start to write few lines of code, let's assume that you want to calculate a birth year of a person who was born in 1960s. So how would you calculate the birth year of a person in 2022? Very easy, you can actually do it on your own, but let me go straight forward. So first we will declare a variable, so probably we are going to use some mathematical calculations, right? So adding, subtracting, multiplications, division. Okay, so I would do first, I would create a variable, I will say let birth year, and I will hold the value 1960 in it, and here I am providing it a semicolon. I can skip it as well since it is optional, but I am providing it. Okay, so we have declared a variable called birth year and we have assigned it a value of 1960. Now again, first let me write a comment here. I will say calculate the age of a person born in 1960. So first we have declared this variable. Now to calculate the age of the person born in 1960, what we need to do? We need to subtract the current year to this birth year, from this birth year, right? So what we can say? We can simply say console.log the current year is 2022, so 2022 minus birth year. Okay, so this code would actually be something like this. So console.log 2022 minus 1960, and this would result into 62, I guess, right? So here I can refresh the page and now you can see we get 62 from script.js 72. So from line 72 we are getting 62 as the output. Now what just happened is that we used two operators. First one is we used assignment operators, and then we used mathematical operators, also known as arithmetic operators. Now this is just a simple talk that I am giving to you. Now let's understand operators bit more differently. Okay, so first I'm going to write the comment. So there are three main operators that we are going to talk right in this video. These are arithmetic operators, and I'm writing this comment because when I will give you the final file, you can actually go through the files and you can understand that okay, so here we have studied about arithmetic operators, and then after arithmetic operators we have comparison operators. So I can say comparison, or let's go with assignment first. Okay, so assignment operators, and then we have comparison operators. We have few more, but we will not talk about them in this video. I'm just going to keep it very easy. Okay, so yeah, so first arithmetic operators. So these are actually mathematical operators that allow us to perform mathematical operations. So plus, minus, multiplication, and then we have division. Okay, then we have power exponents, okay. And actually you can see that this is asterisk, this is not multiplication. So traditionally in mathematics we have this symbol x as multiplication, right? But in programming we have asterisk, so this is called asterisk. So if you press the button in MacBook, it is shift and 8, okay. So if you press the combination of shift and 8, it would print asterisk, and I hope that it is the same for Windows as well, okay. But nevertheless the focus should be to clear our concept, right? So this is plus, minus, multiplication, division, okay. So let's actually do some steps, okay. So suppose that you have two numbers. First let me comment this out, otherwise it will create an error over here. So suppose that we have two numbers and we want to perform some mathematical operations on it. We can do that. So I can say let number 1 equals to, let number 1 is 30, let number 2 is 20, and now we can perform mathematical operations. So we can do console.log, we can add these two numbers, okay. So we can say number 1 plus number 2. So now number 1 will be added to number 2, so 30 plus 20 would result into 50 being printed here, okay. So let's save the file, reload the browser, you see 50. Similarly we can perform subtraction as well, so we can just say minus. So now it would be 30 minus 20, so it would be 10, and then we can multiply these two as well. So I can say asterisk, so number 1 multiplied to number 2, 30 into 20, it would result into 600. And let's go with division as well. So division is just this slash, okay. So save this, reload the browser, 50, 10, 600 and 1.5. So 30 divided by 20 is 1.5, and actually we can do that over here as well. So we can simply say 30 divided by 20, and now you can see 1.5. You can do 20 plus 30, and this is 50. So this is arithmetic operator, very easy to understand. If you have gone to basic mathematics classes, you can understand what am I talking about, and you must have been to mathematics classes, okay. And next up we have assignment operator, and it's pretty easy to understand what are assignment operators. We have already done here. So what we have done is that we have assigned value 30 to number 1 using this operator. So this is assignment operator. We have said that hey script.js, assign this value 30 to this variable, and script.js simply said okay, good, I'm going to assign this value to this variable. So this is assignment operator, but we have more than this. We have let's take an example, okay, otherwise it would not be very clear to you. So how about if you say let x equals to 20 plus 5. What is happening here is that we are declaring a variable x, and then we are assigning it a value using this equal operator, this term. So 20 plus 5. So the result of 20 plus 5 would be stored into this variable using this assignment operator, which is called as equals operator, okay. So now if you say console.log x, save this, reload the browser, you get 25, okay. Let me comment these codes out, okay. X equals to 20 plus 5, console.log x resulted into 25, okay. Now other than this, what we can do is that we can actually say that suppose that we want to increment the value of 25 to something else. So now we can say suppose that I want to increment the value by 10. How can we do that? Suppose I'm giving you a task that currently the value is 25, but now you have to make it 35. What would you do? You would simply say that x equals to x plus 10, right? Because currently x is 25, but now 25 plus 10 will be 35. So now if I save this, if I reload, now you can see our value is 35, right? But there is a shorter way of doing this. So the shorter way of doing this is simply saying, let me comment this out. I will say this is a longer way, and a shorter way of doing is that simply saying x plus equals to 10. So this is same as saying x equals to x plus 10. If I save this, reload, you can see we again got 35, right? And if you think that this 35 is not the different 35, so let me increase the value by 20, and now you will see 45. And similarly we can subtract as well. So either we can say x equals to x minus 10. So again it would become 35 because currently x is 45. So 45 minus 10 is 35. But again, this is the longer way, right? We can simply do x minus equals to 10. And now it would again come back to 35. Reload the browser. Again it came back to 35. Similarly, we can multiply as well. We can say x asterisk equals to 10. And now it would result into 350 being printed down here in the console. Reload 350. And similarly, we can divide as well. So we can say x divide equals to 10. And now it would be 35. Okay. So this is assignment operators. We are assigning a value to already available variable, or maybe to create a new variable. We can also use this. Okay. Now, other than this, suppose that you want to increment the value of 35 by 1. Again, you can do this way. So x equals to x plus 1. But similarly, we have a very short code, and that is to write x plus plus. That's it. So if you write x plus plus, it would increment the current value of x by 1. If I save this, reload, now it became 36. Similarly, you can say x minus minus, and now it would again come back to 36. But there is no x asterisk asterisk. You cannot do that. Okay, so always remember this. So x plus plus, simply let me write down the comment, increment the current value by 1, and same decrement the current value. So this is assignment operator. And then we have comparison operator. So comparison operator is very easy to understand. Suppose we want to compare two numbers. So first I'm going to say let number 1 equals to 30, and then I will say let number 2 equals to 60. So we can compare these two numbers. If number 1 is greater than number 2, or number 2 is greater than or equal to number 3, so something like this. Okay, so we can simply say console.log num1, and we can use this greater than or less than or greater than equals to less than equals to symbols to compare the numbers. Okay, so we can simply say console.log number 1 greater than number 2. Now let's assume it ourselves. So number 1 is 30 and number 2 is 60. So is number 1 greater than number 2? No. So it would result into false being printed here. Okay, so save this, reload, you see false. Okay, so this is comparison operator. Similarly, you can check for less than as well. You can say less than, and now it would print into true. Why? Because number 1 is 30 and number 2 is 60, and obviously number 1 is less than num2. Reload, now you get true. Okay, similarly you can also do some other steps, like for example, if you want to check if a person is full age, you can write a program for that. Okay, so I can say let full age to enter the bar. I know it is a long name, but I'm just doing some examples. Okay, so don't mind. Let full age to enter the bar is 18. So I can say console.log age, we can simply say full age is greater than 18, and we have to declare a variable as well. So I can say let full, or we can simply say person age. Okay, so suppose a person is entering the bar, we are actually going to ask them if you are 18 or not. So suppose that person is 17. So we can check console.log full age greater than 18. No, it would result into false. Okay, so if I save this, reload, uncaught reference error, full age is not defined. Oh, how can we use full age? We can simply say person age. So we can say person age greater than 18. Save this, reload, and now it says false. No, the person is only 17. So this way we can check if a person is full age or not. And if I obviously say 19, now it would result into true being printed. So you can see it says true. So we can allow them to enter the bar. Okay, so this is operator, and these are the use cases of operators. Now one more thing that I want to talk about is that there is a term called operator precedence. So how does the JavaScript language actually know that if it should do the maths first or the comparison first? So that is what we are going to talk about right now. Okay, now just in a moment we will talk about operators precedence. So how does the JavaScript know if it should do the math first or the comparison first, right? But let me take a moment to talk about two important operations that I almost forget to explain, and these are exponentiation operation and joining two strings together using the plus operator. So let me show you both of them quickly. So over here, so we have already seen the plus, minus, subtraction, multiplication, right? But we have not seen the exponentiation. So if I go little above, I guess I've already written that. So here arithmetic operators, plus, minus, multiplication, division, and then we have this exponentiation, so double asterisk. So let me show you how it works. So we can simply say console.log, and suppose we want to find out 2 to the power 3, right? So we can actually say 2 asterisk asterisk 3. So this would result into something like this. So 2 into 2 into 2, okay? So 2 to the power 3. If I save this, reload, we get 8, okay? And suppose if you want to find out the power of little different number, I can simply say 12. So 12 into 12 is 144, and 144 into 12, let's see what it says. So it's 1728, right? So I can prove it. So I can say 12 into 12 into 12, okay? So 1728, okay? So this is exponentiation, and here I can write it, exponentiation operation, okay? And then after this I will say joining strings using the plus operator, okay? So what does it mean? It simply means that we can actually join two strings together using this plus operator. So let's declare two strings. I can use let and I can use const as well. So let's go with const, no problem, because I have already explained you what are differences between let, const and var, okay? So I can say const first name equals to John, yes, John, and const last name equals to week, okay? And I'm skipping the semicolon. So I can say console.log first name plus last name. So what it would do is that it would simply concatenate first name and last name. So here we will get the output John Wick. So if I save this, refresh, we get John Wick. Obviously we have some spacing problems here, but we can fix it by joining one more space in between them. So we can just do this, okay? So first name plus, we have a space, and then plus last name. So John would come here, then a space, and then Wick. So now if I save this and reload, we get John Wick, okay? But no, we cannot do this one. We cannot subtract this, okay? So if I save this and if I reload, it says none, not a number, okay? So yeah, just concatenation would work completely fine, and we will actually see more about these terms little bit later when we'll understand about strings, okay, and template literals. But right now I just wanted to talk about these two terms because these are these can be very useful at certain places, okay? So yeah, now let's move forward and understand what does operator precedence means in JavaScript. So now we are going to talk about precedence of operators in JavaScript. So first I'm going to write few lines of code, and I will tell you to pause the video and answer the output of the code, and then I will answer it and will explain you why that happened, and this way you will understand how the JavaScript actually knows how to operate when multiple operators are put to use. So here is the code. So now let's go through the code line by line. So we have declared a current year and set it to a future value of 2025. So let's assume we are in future, and then we are performing some operations here. So we are simply saying console.log current year minus 1991 is greater than current year minus 2001. So now it is your time to pause the video and find out what would be the output here in the console. So pause it now. So I hope you were able to complete it. It's very easy. Let's evaluate it line by line and actually code by code. So what is the current year? 2025, right? So I can say 2025 minus 1991, and then greater than 2025 minus 2001. Let's 2001 and let's further calculate it. So 2025 minus 1991, so it would be 34, right? Greater than 24. So the output would be true because 34 is greater than 24, right? So if I save this, reload, we get true. Obviously, because current year minus 1991 is greater than current year minus 2001. And here is the explanation. Now, how does JavaScript actually knows that these two operations needs to be calculated first rather than using this comparison operator first, right? So what I mean to say is that how JavaScript actually knows that we need to evaluate these first and then compare it. Well, it works this way because JavaScript has a well-defined order of operator precedence. So basically the order on which operators are executed. And to actually see the precedence of all the different operators, let's check out a very handy precedence table. So let's Google MDN. MDN stands for Mozilla Developer Network, and then here we can write operator precedence in JS. I hope the spelling of precedence is correct. Okay, so we have some results, and actually we are interested in this one, operator precedence. Click this, and here you can see we get operator precedence. And let's go little down. We will find a table, and we found the table actually. You can see it's a table. If you read, it says the following table lists operators in order from the highest precedence to the lowest precedence. So now let's evaluate it, what is happening here. So grouping has the highest precedence, so these parentheses, so the operations inside the parentheses will always be performed first. So you might have heard of those BODMAS terms, right? So let me just make a search. I can say BODMAS. What is BODMAS? So yeah, this is actually what this table is telling. So BODMAS is an acronym, and it stands for bracket, order, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. And if you read further, it says in certain regions PEMDAS. Okay, so PEMDAS, I think it works in US, but in UK and India it's BODMAS. So now let's figure out what we are actually, let's stick to the point of why this first evaluated than this. Here you can see that all the mathematical operations like addition, subtraction, division, remainder has a higher precedence of 12 and 11 than these comparison operators. So less than equal to, greater than equals to. Okay, so it has a operator precedence of 9, and then these arithmetic operators has operator precedence of 11 and 12. Okay, so these operations will be performed first than this. Okay, so that's why this operation and this operation is performed first, and then both of them were compared using this comparison operator. Now you can also notice something written over here. So right to left, left to right. What are these? Well, these are associativity. So when operations are performed, some of them are executed from left to right, and some of them are executed from right to left. So from right to left. Now over here you can see that additions and subtractions are executed from left to right, and exponentiations are executed from right to left. Now what does this actually means? So now let me explain you what this means. So over here, if I write console.log, I can say 30 minus 20 minus 2. What do you think will be the output? So the output will be operated like this. Actually not operated, but the output will be evaluated. So here first 30 minus 20 will be evaluated. So 30 minus 20 is 10, right? And then 10 minus 2. Okay, so first these two code will be evaluated, and then the result will be, and then this 2 minus 2 will be subtracted from the result. So this is left to right execution, and if you see, it says subtractions are executed from left to right. Okay, if I save this, I can prove it here. If you reload, you get 8. Similarly, we have exponentiations. These are executed from right to left. So something like this. If you write let x1 equals to 2 asterisk 3. So what does this actually means is that for browser, and not for the browser, for JavaScript engine, it is x1 equals to 2 asterisk 2 asterisk 2, right? So first these two results will be evaluated. So these two calculation, so 2 into 2 would result into being 4. So I can write here 2 into 2 is 4, and then after this 4 will be multiplied to this 2. Okay, so 2, so 4 into 2 would result into 8, right? And we have already seen this. So one is from left to right and one is from right to left. So here I can write left to right operation, and then here I can say right to left operations. And trust me, these are very important for you to know. Okay, so that's why I'm putting emphasis over it. So actually let's just keep it to console dot log, something like this, x1, that's it, and we will get the output anyway. Okay, now yeah, one more thing I want to show you is that if you navigate little down, and I will show you the real use case. So assignment is actually right to left, right? So right to left. Now how does this actually works? Okay, again we are talking about assignment. This is going to be a little bit confusing, but trust me, I'll try my best to make it very easy for you to understand. Okay, so now let's declare, first of all let's reload it, so we can let's get rid of the output, otherwise it will disturb us in the console. So comment this out, reload, crystal clear. Okay, so over here I can say let n1 comma n2. So we have declared two variables on the same line, and it's completely fine. We don't need to declare variables all the time on a separate line. So something like this, let num2 equals to something. No, it's completely fine to declare two variables on the same line. Later we can assign it a value. Okay, so now I'm going to say n1 equals to n2 equals to 30 minus 10 minus 2. And now I want you to pause the video and answer what will be the output if I say console.log n1 comma n2. And of course I'm missing the semicolon, but I'm just going to put the emphasis on the point here, not going to talk about if we should use semicolon or not, because this is completely optional. Okay, and I have told this many times, and I think I'm going to tell this many times again. But anyway, what will be the output of this code? Let's evaluate it. I can tell you that n1 and n2 both will have the same value. Now let's find out the answer first, and then I will explain you why so. So first n1 equals to n2, right? And then n2 equals to what? 30 minus 10 minus 2. So 30 minus 10 is 20, 20 minus 2 is 18, right? So we can say 18. Now let's come back to our table. Here you can see it says as assignment operators are evaluated from right to left. So this equal operator is an assignment operator, right? So first it will be evaluated from right, and then it will be added to the left. Okay, so this 18 will be added to this value. Okay, so it is operated from right to left. Okay, so this 18 will be added to this n2 variable. So n2 holds the value of 18, and then this code will be executed. So n2 is 18, so n1 is automatically going to get the value 18 because we have two assignment operators here. And again because we have two assignment operator here, and assignment operator are evaluated from right to left. Okay, so first we have 18, right? So what will be the output? So output will be n1 equals to n2 equals to 18, and after this we will have n1 equals to 18 because n1 is equals to n2 as well. Okay, so if you save this, let me comment this out. If I save this, reload, you see we have 18, 18, and I hope I'm making it clear because this is confusing. I know this is confusing, this might be confusing, but trust me, if you really go through this precedence table, you'll actually figure out that this is not tough at all. This equals operator is evaluating the value from right to left. So first it is doing this operation, and whatever the result, it is storing in this value, and then it is following it. Okay, so first this operation was done, the value was stored in n2, and whatever the value n2 holds was stored in n1, resulting into n1 n2 having both the same value printed in the console. Okay, now let's talk about the topmost precedence, that is grouping. Okay, so grouping, it says grouping has the precedence of 18. Now what is this grouping? Well, this grouping is this board mass. So here you can read, it says bracket. Okay, so this is where bracket comes into play. So let me write a simple code here. I'll say console.log 2 plus 2 divided by 2. What will be the output of this code? I'm giving you 5 seconds. Pause the video and answer now. So the output of this code will be 3. Okay, so if I save this, reload, it says 3, and if you said 4, I'm sorry, you clearly did not understood the concept of board mass in school. You can see that division is performed first, okay, and then addition, right? So these two code, 2 divided by 2, will be evaluated first, which would result into 1, and then 1 would be added to 2. Okay, so it will result into 3. Now if you want these two code to be operated first, you need to wrap them into a parenthesis. So now it has a higher precedence than this division. You can see that brackets has a higher precedence of 18 and division has a precedence of 12. So this code will be evaluated first. So 2 plus 2 is 4, and then 4 will be divided to 2, resulting into 3 being replaced by 2. So if I save, reload, now you can see we have 2. I hope you understood what I said. Take the final example to understand how this grouping actually works. And now we are going to find the average age of two people. Okay, so I can say let current, I think I've already done this over here. Okay, so const current year. Okay, so I'm just going to copy it, paste it here, and I cannot redeclare the same variable. So let's do the operation here as well. Okay, here only to be exact. So here I can say that, and we have code as well. So 2025 minus 1991. Okay, but let's do it again. So I can say const age John equals to current year minus the birth year. I can say he was born in 1960, and then I can say const age week. Okay, go ahead with that, and he was born in 1999. And now let's find out the average age. So I can say const average age equals to age of John and not asterisk plus age of week divided by 2. Do you think that this code is the correct code to find out average? Let's figure out. I can say console.log average age. If I save this, reload, it says 78, but no, this is not the correct code. This cannot be true. And if I want to prove it, I can prove it that why this is not correct. I can actually log in the age of John and week. If I save this, you can see that the age of John is 65 and age of week is 26 and the average is 78. So how can average even be higher than one of these two ages? Okay, so this is not possible. Now one also thing one more important thing you can see here is that I have printed multiple variables output in one console.log statement, and this is completely doable. Okay, there is no problem in it. Okay, now how to fix this code? Well, to fix this code, we need to understand how do we actually calculate average. So we first need to perform these operations first. And how do we do that? By wrapping it into a bracket, because brackets has a higher precedence than division. Right now, this division has higher precedence than multiplication. So the first operation that ever going to be performed is this one. So age week divided by 2. So age week is 26. So 26 divided by 2 is 13, and then 65 plus 13 is 78. Let me explain it. So age of John currently is 65 plus age of week is 26 divided by 2. So 26 divided by 2 13 plus 65 is 78, but this formula is wrong. We need to calculate this one first. Okay, so now we will get the average age. So now if I reload, we get 45.5. okay, so I hope this operator thing was crystal clear to you. Well, this was a very long video, and I know that this might be a little frustrating if you are a beginner, but trust me, you need to believe and trust the process. These might look and sound tough to you in the beginning, but trust me, if you watch these videos carefully and try to code along, which is obviously the necessity to do if you are following these lectures, then trust me, you are going to get it. You will understand whatever I have said, and do not forget to understand what is written over here, and most probably you should also read what are these points saying 1 2 3 4. okay, so read them and try to understand them. I will see you in the next video. So do make sure to subscribe, like, and share these to the ones whom you think that these lessons might be helpful. So see you in the next one.